Bryce Young had a disappointing rookie season as the first overall pick, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, under 3,000 passing yards. And when you compare him to CJ Stroud, the difference is obvious, not only in terms of production, but arm talent and strength to avoid sacks. At this point, it would surprise me if Bryce Young ended up being a better quarterback than CJ Stroud, but I still think he has a chance to be a really good quarterback. He was given negative help from his supporting cast in 2023 and actually showed a lot of flashes, a lot more than I was expecting heading into his tape. Starting out looking at his rookie year stats, you can see he was in the bottom half of the league in pretty much every quarterback metric and in the bottom 2 or 3 in the majority of them. He did have 2 of his best performances towards the end of the year against the Falcons and the Packers, but I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say that Bryce Young needs to show significant improvement from year 1 to year 2. Before we get into the individual aspects of his game, I think it's important to make note of how bad the Panthers supporting cast was in 2023. I understand it's kind of the classic excuse that everyone makes for bad quarterbacks is saying they don't have enough help, but the Panthers receivers and offensive line I think stands out as being one of the worst supporting casts that I've ever seen for a rookie quarterback. He had 2 receivers, DJ Chark and Terrace Marshall Jr., that were in the bottom 5 of receiver separation this past season. Jonathan Mingo was a rookie who showed some flashes, but I think overall struggled. And their number 1 receiver was Adam Thielen, who at this point in his career is ideally a team's 3rd best receiver. With the additions of Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette, I think that has a good chance of being reality. But as someone that's made a lot of videos breaking down cornerbacks over the last year, I can't tell you how many times I've watched a corner and their best game was against the Panthers. And if they play in the NFC South, the Panthers were their 2 best games. There was just a collective inability to beat press, threaten vertically with speed, get in and out of breaks, and then actually catch the football. And then their offensive line, outside of Taylor Moton, was one of the worst in the NFL. Ike Ekwonu regressed in year 2. He ended up allowing 11 sacks. He has so much teach tape on what you shouldn't do with your hands in pass protection. And then Bradley Bozeman at center was their only other offensive lineman that started 17 games. Outside of that, they're rotating a bunch of replacement level starters, guys that should be on practice squads. Chandler Zavala, the rookie, was one of the worst players in the NFL. I know PFF grades aren't everything, but he had a 7.1 PFF pass blocking grade. It's to the point where they released Calvin Throckmorton in week 10, who's like a fringe backup type of guard. And you could honestly say that had a significant negative impact on their team because it put Chandler Zavala on the field. So we'll get into more specifics with their supporting cast, but I think it's important to start out with that because it explains some of the struggles that Bryce Young had as a rookie, and the fact that they've upgraded it, I think makes it more realistic that he has a sizable jump heading into year 2. I am going to start positive. Like I said, I actually think Bryce Young put out a lot of encouraging tape last season, and I think one of his best traits is his processing and his ability to attack windows over the middle of the field. He has a really good sense for when intermediate windows are going to close and open. He's able to throw over the middle of the field with timing and anticipation, and when he has time in the pocket, he's comfortable working through his progressions and getting to the backside of reads. This play against Tennessee, it's 4th and 4. He's got a 3-man concept on the right side of the field, but the Titans are in drop 8 coverage. So Harold Landry starts out lined up over the B gap, and then he's going to drop into this hook zone. But Bryce Young's able to get to this backside dig without leading the weak side hook defender into the passing lane with his eyes, and he converts the first down. This play against the Packers, it's 3rd and 6. They're running a concept that's usually called pin. Tommy Tremble runs a hitch to hold the hook defender, which is Quay Walker, and then Adam Thielen's running a dig route behind that against an outside leverage corner. Definitely some questionable spacing and depth by Quay Walker here, but good job by Bryce to fit this in there. And then another late down conversion. This time they've got 4th and 12. Bryce Young is able to manipulate the pocket, avoid the pressure. All of Carolina's routes last year were extremely slow developing, so Bryce kind of had to wait for receivers to get in and out of breaks, but he hits Chark on this deep stop route and moves the chains. And then 3rd and 10 here against the Dolphins. Adam Thielen's running this stop route directly at the deep middle defender. Good job by Bryce to protect the football, throw away from the coverage, and throw his receiver open on 3rd down. There's a lot more plays like this that I could go through, but overall, I was actually really impressed by Bryce Young's poise and processing on late downs, attacking the middle of the field. This play, it's 1st down in the red zone. The Panthers are running kind of a double post concept, which is pretty much undefeated within the 25-yard line. The Lions Titans are in cover 3, so they've got a single high safety, and then their corners are playing with outside leverage. And this inside route from Adam Thielen is more of an over than a post, but it does the same job of influencing the deep safety and creating a window for the second post from the outside. He takes the snap, IDs the safety, sees that Tracy Walker is covering this route from Adam Thielen, and because Chark is running an in-breaking route against outside leverage, it's going to be a lot easier for him to create separation. He does have to slow down a bit to catch the ball, but that's definitely preferable to leading him too far inside and letting the safety impact the play. And a similar sort of concept here against the Packers. This time they've got 3 receivers on the right side, but they still have like an influence deep over from the number 2, which is Jonathan Mingo. That's going to occupy the deep safety, and then DJ Chark stems his post route outside initially to try to widen out the corner's leverage. He breaks inside, Bryce Young fits it into the window for a touchdown. Here's another backside dig from the Titans game. If you remember week 1 against the Falcons, he threw a couple interceptions to Jesse Bates where he just didn't recognize him as the backside safety that he was poaching on an in-breaking route. So really good job by Bryce Young to ID the backside safety, see that he's getting depth. He's got a milk check in the middle hook, so he can fire this in there and get about 20 yards on 1st and 20. And then just trying to show examples of like every type of throw over the middle of the field. This is probably one of his best throws from the 2023 season. He just pins this seam right on Ian Thomas's hands, right over Levante David's head. Ian Thomas isn't able to come down with this, but just high level ball placement right here. So it might be kind of counterintuitive for a shorter quarterback because they usually struggle throwing over the middle, but I actually think that's one of Bryce Young's strengths, and it makes him a great fit for Dave Canale's offense. I think Bryce Young is going to be at his best throwing a bunch of quick in-breakers, not asking the protection to hold up for too long, but you're still able to push the ball somewhat down the field. He just has that natural sense for timing over the middle of the field, how routes are going to develop, how windows are going to open and close. I see like the 90th percentile outcome for Bryce Young as being Tua with more play extension ability, which I think most teams would take. And he also showed the ability to make touch throws outside the hashes. I said that seam throw was his best throw of the season. I actually think this one against the Packers was probably his best. They're running a sail concept with outbreaking routes at all 3 levels of the field. As per usual, nobody's really open, but he puts this exactly where it needs to be, where only DJ Chark can make a play on it. He also had a few nice hole shots against too high. This play, the Titans are dropping into cover 2 post snap. So the safety, Amani Hooker, is lined up close to the line of scrimmage. He's going to zone off into the deep half. Once Bryce sees the corner is playing the flat instead of manning up this vertical route, he hits the hole shot. Another one here against the Bucks. He reads the safeties, sees that he's got cover 2. Zion McCollum, the outside corner, is playing the flat, so he's got space to fit this into DJ Chark. And then kind of a blown coverage here from the Packers on 3rd down, but again, he's able to fit it in between the safety and the flat defender and move the chains. His ability to throw with touch is also extremely valuable in the red zone. Really good elevation on this touchdown pass to Tommy Tremble against the Texans. This play against the Lions, he's under pressure, but still throws another dime to Tommy Tremble. He isn't able to come down with it. And then another double post type of concept here against the Dolphins. This time, it's not just a single high safety that's being influenced. He's still got to get this inside of the corner, but over Xavier Howard, who's playing kind of a robber safety role. So again, I'm not trying to sell false dreams and act like Bryce Young secretly had this really good rookie season, but he definitely showed flashes. I've seen people say he didn't show flashes, didn't make NFL throws. That's just objectively not true. And then probably his biggest strength coming out of college was his play extension ability. I also thought he flashed in that area. This play against the Packers, he's got nothing open initially. He breaks the pocket, hits DJ Chark in stride for the touchdown. Right here, it's 3rd and 3, nothing open on the right side of the field. He extends the play, dances around the pocket, eventually finds Chuba Hubbard for the 1st down. We got a 3rd and 9 conversion from the same game. He's able to break out of the pocket, find DJ Chark on this deep over. This play, Chuba Hubbard just gets planted in pass pro, but he breaks out of the pressure, rolls out to his left, throws a pretty good pass to Adam Thielen. It's a little bit underthrown, but really good adjustment to convert here. So he doesn't have the elite athletic traits that you would normally want for a quarterback that's going to be doing a lot of play extension, but he has playmaking instincts outside of the pocket, and when he is able to escape the pressure, he keeps his eyes downfield and is usually able to create something out of nothing. He was also pretty effective as a runner. He averaged 8.35 yards per scramble attempt, which ranked 7th in the NFL. At his size, I don't know that you want that being a primary aspect of his game, but he's really elusive in open space. He can generate some positive plays with his legs. He had some really nice cuts in the open field. This play against the Colts, he leads them outside and then breaks the linebacker's ankles. This play, he's able to shake EJ's speed in open space, and he had a nice juke in each of the Saints matchups. This play, he fakes upfield, gets to Mario Davis to propose, and then breaks outside. And then right here, he's able to cut and avoid this tackle from Marcus May. So that's how I see the positives for Bryce Young after his rookie season, but there are some limitations and some things that he needs to improve. The first thing that I would classify as a real limitation is that he doesn't have a very strong arm by NFL standards. I think he's going to do his best work within 25 yards, and when he has to push the ball downfield, he can get it 40 to 50 yards down the field, but the accuracy isn't going to be as precise. He really has to put everything into it, and there's too many plays where the ball dies on him late and it gets there a yard or two short. This play, he avoids the pressure, rolls out to his right. He's got Adam Thielen coming open, extending his route, but he just can't put enough into it, and this underneath defender is able to sink and get a hand on it, almost get an interception. I'm trying not to compare him too much to CJ Stroud because that's happened enough already and it will continue to happen, but watching both of them back to back, the difference in arm strength is just impossible to ignore. Plays like this where he's under pressure, getting hit as he's thrown, there's a ton of examples on CJ Stroud's tape or really any top level quarterback where the ball just explodes off their hand and they're able to get enough lift under it to throw a catchable pass. This play, Steven Sullivan has a step of separation, but Bryce can't get it deep enough and it hits the defender's back and falls incomplete. So I do think that pushing the ball downfield with consistent accuracy could be an issue for Bryce Young, especially when he's under pressure, having to throw off his back foot. He also wasn't very accurate. He had the third lowest on target rate in 2023. That's something quarterbacks usually struggle with in their rookie year, just because there's so many other things they have to account for mentally. It causes their technique and mechanics to suffer, but there were way too many missed opportunities, uncatchable passes from Bryce Young. He overthrew a lot of passes. Most of his inaccurate throws were overthrows, either too high or on an outbreaking route, he's putting it too far outside. On an in-breaking route, he's putting it too far inside. He struggled with ball placement when he was under pressure, but there were also a fair amount of misses from a clean pocket. Jonathan Mingo specifically was really hurt by Bryce Young's accuracy. He led all receivers last year in yards lost when he was targeted with an uncatchable pass while he was open. This play, he's coming open on the dig route against zone coverage. Bryce Young leads him too far inside. Really nice route here. He uses this rocker step at the top of his stem to manipulate the corner's hips, and then he accelerates upfield. He's got 2 or 3 steps of separation. Bryce Young just throws with his arm here. He doesn't really put his lower half into it, and so he doesn't have that much control on the placement. This play, he's just wide open out in the flat, and Bryce sails it over his head. So for Bryce Young to reach his ceiling, the accuracy just has to improve. I don't think he's going to be someone that generates enough big plays with his arm to make up for scattershot ball placement. And on a kind of related note, as a shorter quarterback, he has a really difficult time throwing over pressure, throwing over defenders. You see this show up when it comes to hitting his check down from the pocket when he's under pressure, but it also limits his effectiveness in the screen game. When you're running a slip screen or a jailbreak screen, you're going to have some unblocked pressure in your face, and taller quarterbacks with a higher release point can get rid of the ball with less strain, but Bryce either gets his pass batted at the line of scrimmage or he has to put so much touch on it that he ends up overthrowing his target by a couple yards. The next major weakness for Bryce Young is sack avoidance. He took 62 sacks as a rookie, and he had the second highest pressure to sack rate at 24.5%. Some of these are purely protection issues. Some of them are coverage sacks where there's nobody open and there's nothing realistically that any quarterback could do in that situation. But some of the sacks were on Bryce Young for inviting pressure or not getting rid of the ball quickly enough. He also doesn't have the size or strength to consistently break out of sacks, and even though he's elusive in the open field, when it comes to escaping pressure, he's just an average athlete. So a few sacks to break down here. First of all, I'm going to show some examples of sacks that are not his fault. This play, Ike Ekwonu just puts up no resistance around the edge, gets his outside hand easily swiped down, and Joe Tryon gets a strip sack. As a quarterback, it's definitely fair to expect more time than this to get rid of the ball. There's plenty of good examples from the Cowboys game where the O-line's getting getting beat immediately off the snap. One of many rough games for Chandler Zavala. This play, it's 3rd and 10. They've got a dagger concept called where the number 2 receiver runs a seam, which clears out the safety, and then Adam Thielen's going to come open on a dig route over the middle. From a play design standpoint, this works and they're able to get an open receiver, but like I said, the routes are way too slow to develop. Bryce is just waiting in the pocket for this route to come open, and eventually the pressure closes in on him. But you can also see on this play how his height makes it really difficult for him to throw over pressure. Once the pocket starts to compress, he loses his field vision and he can't just stand in the pocket for that extra second and get rid of it as he's getting hit. His only method of really extending the play is to break outside of the pocket. Another 3rd down example here where again they've got a dig route coming open over the middle of the field, but there's unblocked pressure off the left, and once the pass rush closes in, you can see he's completely consumed by the pocket. A couple seconds into the play, Bryce Young is invisible. Like if we can't see him, he definitely can't see over the middle of the field. But he also brings some pressure on himself. This is an area that I expect to improve as his career progresses. This play, they block up a pretty good pocket for him. There's nothing open downfield, so he gets into a scramble drill, but he does one of Sam Howell's favorite moves where he breaks out of the pocket and then just kind of hovers in open space like the 280-pound edge rushers aren't getting paid to get sacks. He rolls out to the right, which is fine, but you've got to keep moving because Trayvon Walker just disengages, chases him down, and gets the sack. Right here, you get a good pass set from Taylor Moton, but Bryce Young just steps into the pressure. Again, the edge rusher can easily disengage and get a cleanup sack. So he's probably never going to have this elite escapability and sack avoidance, but I do think there's some stuff he can clean up just with his decision making in the pocket. And then speaking of decision making, I think you've definitely got to address some of the interceptions and interceptable throws. I don't actually think this was a major issue for him over the course of the entire season. He just had a few really bad games where he turned the ball over 2 or 3 times. Looking at this plot that has big time throw rate and turnover worthy play rate for every rookie quarterback since 2006, you can see he was actually below average in turnover worthy play rate, meaning he protected the football a lot more than average. And turnover worthy plays also include fumbles, which he had a good amount of. So as far as just making bad decisions throwing the football, that wasn't really a huge problem for Bryce Young, but it still is something that needs to improve. Like I said, I think for Bryce Young to reach his potential, he's got to be just surgical as far as ball placement and decision making. His first 2 interceptions came in week 1, which I'll give him a bit of a pass for, and they were both pretty similar. He just either ignored or took for granted Bates as the robber safety over the middle of the field, threw these in-breakers as if Bates wasn't even there, and he gets an easy interception. You never really saw this type of interception show up again, so I'm not overly concerned by it. He had 3 picks against the Colts. 2 of those went back for a touchdown. The first one, he just doesn't put enough on this check down. Kenny Moore's able to easily undercut it and bring it back to the end zone. He threw a very similar pick 6 against Dallas to Deron Bland on a drag route that he was able to undercut. For whatever reason, whenever I put that play in a video, it gets demonetized, so you're gonna have to just imagine it, or you can go look it up, I guess. This play, you see what we were talking about earlier, where when he's got to throw a screen pass over pressure, he can't just naturally elevate it from a high release point. It really messes up his ball placement when he's got to try to loft it over someone or sidearm. This one goes straight to Kenny Moore, and again, he brings it back for a touchdown. Later in the game, we see some improvement. His third interception actually doesn't go for a pick 6. He's got this seam against Tampa 2. The pull runner over the middle is right underneath the route. His arm gets hit on the downswing of his throwing motion, so he doesn't get enough air on it, and it's intercepted. This one against the Lions, we showed a lot of examples of him making really nice touch throws and hole shots, but the flat defender has eyes on the quarterback. Bryce doesn't see him zoning off, and he throws an interception. This play, the Bears are running a pressure where it's an all-out blitz initially, but then once the linebacker gets a blocker to engage, he's done his job and occupied the protection, so he drops back into the hole zone. Bryce wants to hit Tommy Tremble on this shallow cross, but he doesn't see Jack Sanborn in coverage and almost throws an interception. So there's definitely some decision-making stuff to clean up, but like I said, on a per-snap basis, I don't think he made a lot of bad decisions, and they were really focused in a couple bad games. This is my full scouting report on Bryce Young to kind of sum up my thoughts. I mentioned it earlier, but I really see the high-end comp for Bryce Young as Tua with more play extension ability. If he can get more consistent with his ball placement, I think you can design a really efficient offense around Bryce Young, but he isn't purely a system quarterback. He actually has the ability to break out of the pocket and create when there isn't anything available. I think with some of his physical limitations, it might be hard for him to carry an offense and offset a bad offensive line or receivers that don't get open, but that's the majority of NFL quarterbacks. There's only a handful of guys that can consistently elevate a bad offensive roster.